Okay, good afternoon class. Please switch on your videos. Everyone, kindly switch on your videos. Yes, I want everyone to switch on their videos, okay? So, in your congenital heart diseases, we discussed about your cyanotic heart disease. Next was acyanotic heart disease, and today we'll discuss about the third group, which is your obstructive heart diseases. And these obstructions, these are not the ones that develop later on, okay? These are the congenital ones, which means they are present since birth. So these are some obstructive conditions. First one is your coarctation of aorta. You can note that down. COAR CTATION. Coarctation. COARCTATION. Coarctation of aorta. Everyone, please switch on your videos. Those who have joined now and the rest, please switch on your videos, okay? So, what does coarctation of aorta means? Coarctation means it is your congenital narrowing of your descending aorta. Means it is the narrowing of aorta only, but then it is congenital. Means it is present since birth. Okay, the descending aorta means the aorta when it comes down. Your aorta has several parts. Okay, from there if you say one is your ascending aorta which goes upwards, other is your descending aorta, means this part of the aorta, this comes down. So this part of the aorta that comes down, it starts getting narrower. So that is known as your narrowing of the aorta. Okay, that is congenital narrowing. Congenital narrowing means this narrowing is present since your birth. Now I'll show it to you. Wait. Can you all see this? Okay, this is your aorta, and when the aorta is coming down, it is starting to get narrower. As you can see, the gap here, it is much more, but the gap here, it is less. So your aorta, as it is from before, then from here it has started narrowing. Okay, the gap is less in between these two, which means this is known as your coarctation of aorta. And then for the region where this is present, the area is usually near your this ductus arteriosus. As I told you, this was the this was the artery that was connecting your pulmonary artery and the aorta, and it is common in fetus, and it should close as you grow up. So when you are born or before you were born, at this place this aorta starts narrowing near your ductus arteriosus. Now, near this point of narrowing is the subclavian artery. I'll tell you why I have mentioned about the subclavian artery. Okay, this is related to your clinical features. Because of that, I have mentioned about subclavian artery. You don't need to go in details, but for now, you just need to know that the subclavian artery, this artery supplies blood to your head and neck. Okay, subclavian artery supplies blood to your head and neck, and then this narrowing of aorta, it occurs just below the subclavian artery. Okay, so this is related to your clinical features. Now I'll tell you how. See, when the blood is flowing through this and this aorta has started narrowing, so since it is narrow here, so as a result what will happen is more blood will flow through this area, that is your subclavian artery. Means the blood will go back and it will flow through this, because there is not much space for the blood to go through this. As this aorta has narrowed, so more blood will go through the subclavian artery rather than your descending aorta. So as a result, what happens is that, as I said, this subclavian artery, it supplies your head and neck. Okay, it supplies your head and your neck. So since it supplies these two areas, so when there will be more blood flow to your head and neck more than required, so you will experience headache. Headache is a clinical feature here. Okay, also you will have vision problems, that is with your eyes. Your eyes need blood, but at a particular amount, it should not exceed. But when less blood is flowing through aorta because of narrowing, more blood is flowing through this artery. So as a result, your head and neck is receiving more blood than required. So these are some of the clinical features, that is headache and your vision disturbances. So you will get these two when your narrowing of the aorta occurs, because there is more blood flow through the subclavian artery. Clear till now? Clear to all, or you want me to repeat? Clear? Okay. There are other clinical features as well, I'll let you know, but then these two were interlinked. Okay, because of that I have shared this. The other clinical features, they will be similar to the other two types, so I'll tell them all together. Okay, now there is this another thing. This area, when it starts narrowing, so the defect is here, so it starts looking like this. Okay, which is like a E, that is your inverted. Okay, here you can see it as an inverted E. See, here is the defect, and if you see it in this way, so it starts looking like a E, and you will get to see this in your ECGs and also in your X-rays. Okay, so this is called the E sign. E sign. Okay, so E sign is positive in case of your coarctation of aorta, because this starts looking like an E, the inverted one. So next we will go into the second type, which is your aortic stenosis and atresia. Aortic stenosis and atresia. Stenosis means, what does stenosis means? I have told it several times about stenosis. So what does stenosis means? Stenosis means narrowing. Okay, narrowing. So if I say aortic stenosis and atresia, this is the second condition. So in case of aortic stenosis, the aortic valve, it starts narrowing, and in case of atresia, the aortic valve is completely absent. Whenever you see the word atresia, you need to know this means absence, and whenever you see the word stenosis, this means the narrowing. Okay. See. Suppose this is your left ventricular chamber. Okay, I'm just drawing this as your left. I'm not drawing the heart, I'm just showing you this is a rough diagram. Suppose this is your left ventricle and this is your aorta. Suppose this is the aorta and this is your left ventricle. So here will be the valves. Here will be the valves. So what happens? These are your aortic valves. These are your aortic valves. So what happens here is whether these valves are absent, they are not present, or they start narrowing. Okay, if they start narrowing, so what happens is that the blood from the left ventricle, it cannot move into your aorta. The blood, that is because it has started narrowing, now there will be less gap. Okay, the gap will be very less, so the blood that needs to move through it will be less. Or sometimes what happens is that this is absent. Since the valve is absent, so the blood, it cannot flow from your left ventricle to your aorta. So there will be less blood flow into your aorta and more blood will be present in your left ventricle. Clear? Clear, or you want me to repeat this? Is it clear? Aortic stenosis and atresia? Repeat. Okay. See, I'll draw this again. Okay. If I say, suppose this is your left ventricle. Okay. Suppose. Don't draw like this in your exams. Okay. Suppose this is your left ventricle. This is the aorta. Okay. This is the aorta. You all know that the aorta is connected to your left ventricle. So at the point of connection, there is this valve, or you can call it the door, which you call as the aortic valve. So in case of your atresia, this aortic valve will be absent. Okay. In case of stenosis, the gap, when this valve open, then there is a particular gap. Then this gap starts decreasing. So why do we need this valve? So that when these valves open, the blood can flow through it. Now what will happen is that when these valves will be absent, suppose there is no door, so the door will not open. So the blood from here cannot go into your aorta. Or even if the door opens, it is very narrow. Even then, the flow of blood into the aorta from your ventricle is less. So as a result, there will be less blood flow into your aorta and there will be more blood in your ventricle. Clear? Clear, or you want me to repeat this? Clear, okay. So next you have pulmonary stenosis and atresia. So this is the similar thing. Okay, you will get to know. Suppose again, where is the pulmonary artery connected? To your right ventricle. Aorta is connected to your left ventricle. Pulmonary artery is connected to your right ventricle. So it's the same thing. Suppose this is the right ventricle and this is your pulmonary artery. So what happens here is, and this is a pulmonary artery. These are the valves. Okay, these are the valves. So what happens here is, either these valves will be absent. Okay, that means this door will be absent. So the blood from right ventricle to the pulmonary artery, the blood flow will be less. Okay, either this will narrow or this will be absent. So if these are absent, these valves are absent, that is the door is absent, so the door will not open or the valves will not open. As a result, the blood from your right ventricle cannot move into your pulmonary artery, or that is in case of your atresia. And in case of your stenosis, what will happen is that this door, that is the valves, will open, but it will be very narrow. So the blood flow will also be less. So it is the same. Here it was your left ventricle and aorta. Here it is your right ventricle and pulmonary artery. So either blood will not flow, or even if it flows, it will be very less. And as a result, the right ventricle will have more of blood. Clear? Clear to all? Okay, so these were the three conditions, okay, in your obstructive heart disease. First one was your coarctation of aorta, where there was your narrowing of the descending artery, and then next were your this aortic stenosis and atresia, and third one was your pulmonary stenosis or atresia. So now coming to the clinical features. So the clinical features, I explained you about headache and vision disturbances. Okay, this were in your coarctation of aorta, and along with this there are some other clinical features which are only specific to your coarctation of aorta. So we'll discuss that first. Okay, after that we'll discuss about the common clinical features. So other specific ones are, I told you about headache and vision disturbances. Okay, apart from it, see, the descending aorta is getting narrow, which means there will be more blood through the ascending aorta. If you say, wait, see, this is just a rough diagram. Suppose this is your aorta. So this your descending aorta, this has started narrowing. Okay, so the blood, if the blood is coming through this, the blood will go more in this side. Okay, this side it will be less. So for the ascending aorta, this is the ascending and this is your descending. So what happens is that through the descending aorta your blood supply is less, which means now the descending aorta, it supplies the lower part of your body, which is your lower extremities, your legs and your abdomen. So what will happen? The muscles in your legs, they will receive less blood or they will receive less oxygen because this has narrowed. So if the gap for the blood to flow is less, so there will be less blood flow into the lower part of your body. Okay, so as a result there will be less amount of oxygen in the lower part of your body. But since the blood is less through it, so there will be more blood through the ascending one. As a result, the upper part of your body, that means your hands will receive more of blood, more than it is required. So the blood pressure will also be more in your upper extremity. In this case, the blood pressure will be different. In your upper extremity will be more, in your lower extremities it will be less, and your lower extremities will also receive less of oxygen. Clear? Or you want me to repeat? Is it clear why there will be more blood in your upper extremities and why it will be less in your lower extremities? Is it clear? Repeat. Okay, see, your aorta, it has some branches and divisions. Okay, let us consider it has two. One is your ascending, the other is your descending. Now if I say ascending, ascending means moving upward and descending means coming down. Okay, now in coarctation of aorta, the descending artery, it gets narrow. Okay, means the the aorta that is coming down, that is getting narrower. As a result, the descending artery, it supplies the, which is coming down, it supplies the lower part of your body. So since it is getting narrowed, the blood flow through it is also less. Okay, if anything gets narrower, the flow through it will be less. So the blood flow through this descending aorta will be less. As a result, your lower part of the body or your legs will receive less blood or they will receive less oxygen. Okay, and the ascending aorta, which was going up, okay, as the blood flow through the descending is less, so where will the blood go? Ultimately, since the your lower blood is not able to go into your lower body, so it has to go somewhere. So what will happen is that it will start flowing upwards, that is to your hands and to your head and neck. So because of these regions, okay, since your head is also receiving more blood, you will get headache. Your eyes will be receiving more blood. Because of that, you will get vision disturbances. More blood means it is more than required. Your hands will also receive more of blood. So the blood pressure here in your hands or in your upper limbs will be more than the blood pressure in your legs. So it will be different because your legs are receiving less blood, because the descending artery has narrowed, so your legs are receiving less amount of blood. Because of that reason, your legs will have lower blood flow, low oxygen and low blood pressure, and your upper extremities will have more blood flow, more of oxygen and more blood pressure. Clear now? Clear? Is it clear? Okay. And after that, there are some common clinical features, okay, like you will have breathlessness, which is known as your dyspnea. Dyspnea on exertion means when you are doing a lot of physical activity, then you will feel the shortness of breath, okay. And in severe cases, even when you are resting or you are sleeping, even then you will feel this breathlessness because of lack of oxygen. And these clinical features are common in all the three cases, okay, because the blood flow is hampered, okay, your whole cardiovascular system is hampered. Because of that, you will have dyspnea, which is your shortness of breath, okay. And because of shortness of breath, you are not receiving much of oxygen. As a result, you will also feel fatigue very easily, you will get tired very easily. Apart from that, you will get to hear those murmur, that is the abnormal heart sound. Then there will be cardiac arrhythmia, means the rhythm of the heart that will be disturbed. Then you will have dizziness, okay. Dizziness means when you feel like your head is spinning, or in Assamese we call it murghurwa, that is called your dizziness, okay. You will have that feeling as well. You will have decreased exercise tolerance, means you will not be able to exercise or do your physical activities for a longer period of time. And the child will also have poor growth, okay. His height will also be less and weight will also be less according to his age. And also the person will experience chest pain. So these are the clinical features. Clear? Okay. And okay, I hope it is clear to all. Then your for your diagnosis, these things are same. With the clinical features, you will get to know with the general physical finding that there is some problem with the heart. Then with the confirmations, for confirmatory test, you go for x-rays, ECG, echo, these are all same. And for treatment, in like if you want medical management, like since the blood flow is less, so the oxygen is also less, so sometimes they might need artificial oxygen, okay. And in severe cases, maybe ventilation. Now as I told you, the blood pressure in your upper body will be more in case of coarctation of aorta, so in such cases you will need medicines for your hypertension, okay. Means medicines that lower your blood pressure. Then if you will have fever, then you will need medicines for that as well. Then I told you about another medicine which is called digoxin. You will have it when you have cardiac problems to strengthen your cardiac muscles. And apart from this, you will need surgery in severe cases. When all these medications cannot help and the condition is getting serious, then you will need the surgical management. Okay, means apparently your diagnosis and treatment, these are almost similar. The surgeries are different, but you don't have to know about the surgeries, okay. So is it clear, the congenital heart diseases? Is it clear? Okay. So now if I say like about the treatment, we were talking about the medical treatment and surgical treatment, which you don't need in detail, okay. But then, apart from this, the physiotherapist, they have got some role to play, okay, in cardiac rehabilitation. So why we are learning all this is that we physiotherapists, we need to do certain measures to help these people. So what can we do is, like what I'll tell you now is not only for the congenital heart diseases, okay, this is like a rehab program for your heart or for your cardiac surgeries. So usually whenever you have cardiac surgeries, so the physiotherapist, they have got a role to play before operation and after operation as well, okay, before and after the operation. So whatever measures we undertake before operation, these are known as preoperative management. Preoperative means before operation. And whatever measures we take after the operations, these are known as your post operative measures. Post, okay, post operative measures. Now what do we do in the preoperative measures? Like the what you start doing is full joint range of motion, okay, you start doing, have you learned about the active and active assisted exercises before? Were you taught those active and active assisted? Okay, okay. So you start doing this active and active assisted exercises for all your joints. That is for your arms, for your legs, for your trunks. You start doing these exercises even before the operation. Okay, because maybe the person, since the person is having the disease, so his general mobility is reduced. The person will not be working much. So what you need to do is you need to encourage the person to do these active exercises. If he is not able to do, then we'll go for the active assisted exercises. Then we'll teach the correct posture to the person, okay, like how does he need to sit. Okay, if he is sitting, then he should not stoop, he should be sitting in a correct posture which is erect, okay, he should be sitting straight. And if like we will teach him, like if he is having a incision, that is a cut mark, okay, cut mark, and then means from where the surgery will occur, there will be a mark. So whatever what he needs to do is he needs to hold in that incision side, and then whenever he coughs, okay, he need to hold in that area, because otherwise the pressure on that area will be more. So you need to support that area, you need to put a pillow in that area, or you need to hold that area, okay. And I'll show that to you. Holding the area, okay. So here where the incision sites means there was the cut mark here, how the surgery was done, you will get to see some marks. So while coughing or while doing means while sitting, when they feel pain, so they need to hold that area, or they need to put a pillow in that area and support that area, otherwise there will be more strain in that area, okay. Then after that we will teach them some breathing exercises. Now for your breathing exercises you have another unit, okay, so we'll discuss about it in details in that unit, okay. For now you just know that we'll teach them some breathing exercises, I'll discuss that in detail later on. Then is general mobility is encouraged, means general mobility means the person he is encouraged to walk for a little amount of time, not much. He's suppose in the bedside or just in his room, he is encouraged to walk. And then the patient is also taught to cough out, okay, how he needs to cough out if he has got some secretions, okay, if there are certain secretions that are stuck in your airways, so how you need to bring it out. See, some people whenever they cough, they don't take out the secretions, okay, so that this increases your cough. So what happened here is that if you are having some secretions, you will feel that there is something stuck in your airways or in your windpipe, so you will try to cough it out. So these are certain things that you need to teach him before the operation. because these will be effective after the operation as well. Now, after the operation, what we need to do is we have three areas, okay? Chest care, general mobility, and rehabilitation. These are the three areas that we need to look upon: chest care, general mobility, and rehabilitation. So, within chest care, first is that you need to always encourage the person to sit in an upright position, okay, not in a slump position. Can you see this? The first person is sitting straight. The other person is in a slump posture or in a stoop posture. So we should discourage this posture. Okay, we should not allow the person to sit in this way. He should always be encouraged to sit in this way, that is straight. Maybe he will need the support of pillows, but then he needs to sit straight. Okay, not in this way. So we need to encourage this correct posture for the person. And also we need, in some cases, no, for example, when you have this pacemaker surgeries and all, so we should not like advise the person to lie upside down, that is the prone position. When we sleep on our stomach, okay, when we sleep upside down, that is not straight, upside down, so that position usually it helps in improving your oxygenation. But here, in case of your like cardiac pacemaker surgeries, you cannot allow the person to sleep in that way. So these are some postures that you need to take care of. Okay, next is your breathing exercises. Breathing exercises, I told you I'll explain it, okay, later on about breathing exercises. So this comes under your chest care. Next is your coughing. So you will help the person to cough out the secretions, and if they are feeling some pressure or pain in their chest, then as I have shown you, you will teach them how to keep their hand on their chest or how to keep a pillow on their chest, and after that they will have to cough it out. They will have to cough out the secretions. So you will teach this before the operation as well, so that they can practice this after their operation. Okay, they also, all this comes under your chest care. And breathing exercise, I'll teach it afterwards. Okay, after that it comes your general mobility. So what comes under general mobility is the person, he, if he will sleep for a longer period of time, he, if he is advised like bed rest, but even then he needs to keep his range of motion, he needs to keep up with his strength. So because of that, we need to encourage him to do some exercises. Even when he is lying or sleeping, we will just ask him to do these active exercises of his arms, such as raise your hand or raise your leg little bit. So we'll encourage him to do these exercises. Okay, or if the person can walk and all, so what will encourage him to walk for at least 10 minutes a day. Okay, at least 10 minutes a day, and then gradually we will keep on increasing. Okay, so there are certain exercises that the person can do. One is your shoulder exercises. I'll show you. Wait. Can you see this? These are some trunk exercises. Like the person is bending to one side, and then he will be straight again, and then he will bend to the other side. The first diagram, okay? He will first bend, suppose, to the left side, then he will be straight, and then again he will bend to the right side. Then the second diagram, when the person, he will rotate his trunk, that is he will sit and then he will start trying to rotate his trunk, that is his upper body, first to the right then to the left, or maybe first to the left and then to the right. That doesn't matter, the sequence doesn't matter, but the thing is, if you rotate to right now, then next is your left. If first left, then next is your right. So these are the things that can be done. So these are for your trunk. Next, you can have some like your leg exercises. I have showed you for your arm, then this is for your trunk, then again can you say this? So these are simple knee bends. So first you will be sleeping, then you will bend one knee, and then again you will make it straight, and then you will bend the other. Okay, this is one of your leg exercises, and it is very effective. Sometimes what happens is that you tend to develop stiffness when you sleep for a long period of time, or you have been advised rest. Then these exercises you can start doing while you were lying. This one this one is your squatting, half squatting. So complete squatting will not be possible because that will put a lot of strain, okay? That will put a lot of strain on your cardiovascular system. So what you can do initially after your operation, like after 7 days after your operation, so what you can do is you can take a chair in that way, and you can do this half squatting. You can take the support of the chair, okay? Because without the support of the chair, again, it will increase the strain on your cardiovascular system. So you need to take certain kind of support, and then you will do this half squatting. Then there is this another exercise, okay, we call it as step ups. So you will put one leg above and the other leg is down, and when you raise the other leg on the step, then you put the other leg down. It's just that how you climb on a stair and then come down from the stair, it's the same thing. Okay, how you climb on a stair and then come back down, again climb up and then climb back down. So these are known as your step ups. Okay, so these were some exercises. I'll give you the notes for this. So these are some exercises that you can do along with your breathing exercise. After that, uh, walking. Okay, that comes under your general mobility and also under your rehab program. So you need to continue with your walking. Okay, it is important to take like regular walks. You should not have a gap in between. You need to take regular walks. At least you should aim for a 10-minute walk daily. Okay, even if not more, but at least a 10-minute walk. But you do not need to do it very fast, because if you do it very in a very fast manner, what will happen is you will again have shortness of breath, because the your heart is healing now after the surgery. So you don't need to do anything aggressive or excessive. Okay, everything needs to be done in a light manner. Okay, because next day after the surgery you start doing the exercises that I have shown you, it will not work. So the next day you will just start with the mild exercises, that is you can just raise your arms or you can do the breathing exercises, and after some days later you can just progress to one after the other. Similarly, for walking, at first you will aim for only a 10-minute walk, and later on, like for your, again you will have an appointment. Okay, like if you are discharged after your surgery, so the surgeon will call you like after 1 month or so. Okay, sometimes it's 28 days, sometimes 20 days, okay, sometimes 30 days, depending upon the surgery. So the next time you go to meet your surgeon, before that appointment you need to make sure that you can walk at least for about 30 minutes a day. Okay, first you will start with 10 minutes. You will gradually keep on increasing, and your ultimate aim should be to reach about like 30 minutes. Okay, and you can continue with the aerobic exercises. Have you heard of the word aerobic exercise? Okay, aerobic exercises, that means with oxygen. So when you are using up the oxygen, these are the aerobic exercises. For example, swimming, walking, cycling, these are some aerobic exercises. These you can undertake as well, but not immediately after your surgery, but some days later you can continue with these aerobic exercises. Now, there are certain, after along with these exercises, you will also give them some general advice. Okay, advice like, you will have like after the surgery, it is obvious to get some pain. Okay, it is obvious to get some pain because you had an incision and you got a surgery, so you will have the pain in your chest, in your back, or maybe in your neck areas. So this will take some time. You need to make them explain that this will take for about like 2 to 3 months. Okay, so sometimes what they will do is they will start exercising and then they will feel that I have pain because of the exercise, but it is not so. You need to make them explain that it is because of your surgery that you are getting the pain, not because of the exercises. So you need to continue your exercises. So these are some of your general advices. Also, you need to advise them that you do not carry any like heavy objects. Okay, do not carry, push or pull any kind of heavy objects after your surgery. And then also, do not put much load on your heart. That is, do not do aggressive or excessive activities or exercises. Okay, if you are exercising and the person is like having shortness of breath, or the person is getting tired easily, then what they need to do is they need to stop their exercises. Okay, like they need to do the exercise till their own limit. Okay, the limit should not exceed, because there is a limit for everything. So if you exercise beyond the limit, that will be again harmful for the person. So once they feel shortness of breath, and then or they feel tired, too much tired, then they need to stop exercising. Okay, then another advice is you need to advise them to not exercise on a full stomach. Okay, that is, immediately after eating one should not exercise. There should be a gap of at least 1 hour. Okay, 1 hour, there should be a gap of 1 hour, and after that you need to exercise. And when sometimes there might be extreme weather conditions. For example, sometimes you will have rain outside, or sometimes it will be too much sunny outside, so you cannot advise the person to go out in such conditions. So what you will do is you will advise them to work out indoors. Okay, for example, you will advise them to walk from one room to the other, or exercise in your room itself. Okay, do not go out in extreme weather conditions. So these are some general advice that you need to give to these people. Okay, so this was the treatment from your physiotherapy point of view. Clear? Clear for all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I hope it's clear for all, and I'll send you the notes for this obstructive heart disease, and then for your cardiac rehab. Okay, you just read it once. If you have any doubt, then let me know. And this ends your first unit, that is of your cardiovascular system. So from Monday, we'll learn about the lungs. Okay, about your respiratory system. And CR, you send me the attendance. Okay, if the CR is absent, any one of you can send me the attendance. And all of you send your heartbeat or your pulse rate in the group. Okay, because from Monday we'll go into another unit, which is your respiratory system. So I want all of you to find out your heartbeat or your pulse and send it to me by tomorrow. Okay, and CR, send me the attendance. Take this as an assignment. Okay, send the pulse rate in the group.